Ladies and gentlemen, we do have an update regarding the current situation with Mexico, the idea of Donald Trump potentially launching a soft invasion into Mexico to take out some of the biggest cartel leaders and potential precision airstrikes, special forces, the full 9 yards, a multi-year project to stop the stranglehold the cartels have over the Mexican government. Now, it would be great to have the Mexican government's cooperation in this endeavor. The problem is, with the amount of corruption in Mexico, the government is basically the cartel. They're one in the same, not literally, but figuratively, based off the influence the cartel has and the power that they have over the government. But we've got this update here, which could help Trump or enable Trump to launch a soft invasion, which hopefully would fracture and cripple the cartels. It could create destabilization. I'm sure Trump and his advisors are looking at that and understanding, all right, well, if we do launch some special operations into Mexico, what will the reaction be? Because that is one of the things that I'm worried about when it comes to these potential situations. You know, if the United States does launch precision airstrikes, you're potentially destabilizing the area and creating a power vacuum, and also alienating the cartels even more against the United States. Now, that is kind of a loser way of thinking. Like, we are the United States. They border us. They're a complete mess right now. Fentanyl is flowing over. That's in and of itself, the amount of Americans dying from that should be a reason, for Trump being able to stop the cartels. And again, the Mexican government will say, no, you can't do anything, respect our sovereignty. We're trying to help them. They're just controlled by the cartels with the amount of influence. So obviously they're going to come out and say, no, don't do this. They really need help. And it's becoming an issue to where if it was just happening in Mexico, we wouldn't be doing anything, but we kind of have to do something, or at least it's more out of the box thinking from Trump to try and help just American citizens and the problems that we're dealing with these drugs flowing across the border. And also the other problem with Mexico being at this point like a failed country. At least some parts of Mexico are really bad. There are other cities that are very nice. The cost of living is extremely low. Trust me, I've looked this up, but there are so many areas in Mexico. It's extremely dangerous. At one point, and I would stay even still, traveling to Mexico, even go to a resort, it can be risky. Getting to the resort, if the resort's a few hours away, because of how dangerous Mexico is at this point. And again, if everything was happening in Mexico, it'd be one thing, but it's flowing over now. And with Biden having the border wide open, it's made the issue 10 times worse. So Trump is trying to prevent a relapse of another liberal government taking over and opening the border wide up and dealing with the fentanyl issue. Because obviously, if you have a situation to where there's less strict border policy, it's going to allow the cartels, even though I'm not saying Democrats endorse the cartels, it's just based off of the laws that they put into place. It's going to be easier for cartels to operate and for drugs to flow across the border if you have less strict policies. That's just the reality. And so Trump, and now the cartels hate Trump, obviously, for a number of reasons, but they're going to really hate him soon here if he does go through with these soft invasions, which are targeted strikes, special force operations into cartel zones in Mexico to take out the leaders and just the cartels in general. And we'll see if he ends up doing this. U.S. Border Patrol agents exchange gunfire with Mexico drug cartel. Now, this is something that has happened before, but apparently the cartels have gotten very angry since Trump came into office. They're not happy at all. You can see why this matters. It is reported that while the suspected cartel has fired shots from the Mexican side of the territory for years, things in the area have escalated in unprecedented ways since President Donald Trump was elected, even giving orders to shoot at agents recently. So these cartels now acting a lot more aggressive at the border. And I think the idea for Trump is to secure the border before they do the soft invasion into Mexico, which is the targeted strikes onto the cartel areas. And that would be my guess, in terms of how they escalate this and potentially try and really quiet these cartels down, which right now do have a stranglehold over Mexico. But again, I would say Trump and just in general, they need to be very careful when it comes to escalation with the cartels. And it is different from from a military operation in like the Middle East, because this is very close to the United States. Hypothetically, it's going to be a lot easier because of how close we are to our homeland. And in terms of these operations, and it's not an army thing. I mean, there could be some guerrilla warfare with these cartel members But I think the idea would be to stymie the cartels from expanding from where they are right now and debilitate them to the point where they basically can't operate anymore. That's what I would say. You've got Trump issuing a massive crackdown on illegal immigration. The raids have started, by the way, in major cities. I just saw today. They're ramping it up. At this point now, it's over 1,000 per day. They're deporting. It was like 1,000 this morning, but it's going to be like 4, 5, 6,000 a day with Trump when it comes to deporting these immigrants. And we've seen a lot of liberals try and do the crocodile tears, the fake stuff. It's not working. People are not buying it. The vast majority of independents and Republicans in this country want all of the illegals deported. And they're trying to do the whole thing with a narrative with, oh, they're going to the schools. Well, yes, you got to go to the schools. There's illegal kids at the schools. They need to be deported. That's what happens. The schools are an easy place to get them. We're sorry, it's not the kid's fault, but this is a country. This country has borders. If you're here illegally, you need to go. That's the reality of it. It's inexcusable for a country the size of the United States, with the power the United States has, to be this bad when it comes to illegal immigration. It's absolutely inexcusable, and they're trying to do the whole fake outrage to get Trump's approval rating to go down. It's not working. Trump's approval on the border, there's a new poll that just came out. It's like plus 30. It is crazy. People want all of them gone. And now Trump's even floated more ideas to even go further. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we will see. You've got Trump designating Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, which gives Trump more flexibility in terms of dealing with these terrorist organizations, because now they're designated as such. So now Trump can be justified in military actions against them. That's exactly why Trump did that, and it's smart, especially when you're talking about the dynamic within Mexico and the problem that the destabilization of Mexico has had on Americans because of the drug flow and the cartels controlling the Mexican government, and all the crazy horror stories you hear about the amount of politicians in Mexico that have been killed by the cartels. It is crazy. And again, if it's just happening in Mexico, that's one thing. But the problem is it's starting to pour over into the United States. When you've got a first world country with a third world country under it, there's going to be problems at the border. We're securing the border. And then we're also making it to where the problems that we're having because of that third world country, hopefully, I'm not saying this 1,000% is going to work, because I do think there could be issues just in terms of, if you do eliminate some of the leaders or some of the cartels, other ones could rise, and there could be even more animosity and more hate to the United States. And it's not like this blanket thing to where let's just get all of them and then we'll be done. It doesn't work like that. Now, I hope something like that would happen, or you would at least be able to eliminate a lot of them to the point where they're not an issue anymore. And then I think that would be a successful operation, but it is complicated. It's not just going to happen overnight. You've got, per multiple law enforcement sources, within the last hour, this was yesterday, Border Patrol agents near Fronton, Texas were fired upon by suspected cartel gunmen. So the cartel gunmen escalated at first. They fired on them, and this just gives Trump more authority for force against the Mexican cartels. They fired upon our Border Patrol agents. Obviously, the flow of drugs coming over, the amount of Americans dying from those drugs. Trump's got supreme authority to go in and do this. We would appreciate the Mexican government's cooperation. Understand when people that don't like Trump try and swing this and say, how could Trump do this? The Mexican government doesn't want this. The Mexican government is controlled by the cartels due to the corruption. It's just the reality. The Mexican government, you would think, just looking back on this, the actual leadership there would be like, yes, we would love to get the cartels out of politics, and just, if you're the United States, ideally do this without any type of soft invasion. It would be through cooperation within the Mexican government, basically like an El Salvador 2.0, where they went really hard, because, you know, that's when you get to a certain point with a crime state, you have to go total elimination mode just in terms of jailing pretty much. And that's why there was criticism with El Salvador. They said they jailed people that weren't criminals, just because, I mean, that's the only way to clean it up once it reaches a certain point in terms of just a total crime country. And that's what you would need Mexico to do in terms of their commitment. The problem is the infiltration of the cartels with their government, so you can't get that cooperation. So it's hard to really solve this just with politics in terms of well, let's talk to the Mexican government, let's work together, let's make an investment there. And then this would help Americans because there'd be less flow of fentanyl and drugs, and the border would be more secure just in terms of people not wanting to, because a lot of people, they come from other countries to the Mexican border, and then that's how they get across to the United States. It's not all the illegal immigrants are Mexicans, and that's something that a lot of people have talked about. A lot of the illegals are coming from other countries, but they're coming through the Mexican border just because it's such a mess right now in the country of Mexico. It's easy to get through. So ideally, you would have the cooperation of the Mexican government, but because of the cartels, it's difficult to achieve that. But you're going to need some type of El Salvador rebound here when it comes to getting someone in power in Mexico that is no BS and is like, yeah, to fix this. I mean, it's very hard. It's, there's going to be some big problems in terms of you have to be very aggressive because of how failed it is at this point. And that's what El Salvador did, and that's why they created the crazy prisons that they have. So try and use the El Salvador motto, but they've got like a socialist leader in right now. It's just not, that probably has been propped up by cartel. I mean, I don't know, but it's like, you just have to wonder, how failed is their government actually in terms of them saying, no, we don't want your help in dealing with the cartels. Okay. Like, what sense does that make? Your country is being ravaged. So, and the entire power structure is messed up because of it in Mexico. So we'll have to see what Trump ends up doing. Obviously, it's very complex. There are negative aspects of doing this in terms of destabilizing Mexico and alienating, criminals in Mexico more against America, which could be a problem just in terms of how close the United States is to Mexico. But Trump he knows he's going to have to totally secure the border before doing this. The idea is you get the border completely secure, and then you launch targeted strikes against certain cartels. I believe that's what Trump would do. So we'll have to see. Either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.